Intellitek's mega-litecloth series have been some of my favorite lights over the past few years because its super slim profile makes it really easy to put it wherever I need while also being incredibly soft without the need for extra grip or modifiers. So how has the newer version improved? Let's take a look. So picture this. You're setting up for an interview and the client gives you the absolute smallest room they have available. This has happened to me a countless amount of times, whether it's an office or a conference room, so I'll often pull out the mega-litecloth because it's super versatile and I can slide it right up against the wall. Oftentimes when I'm on smaller jobs where I'm only bringing a single light, the mega-litecloth is usually what I'll pack with me because it has both the output and quality in an easy to transport package. Intellitek recently updated their units to version 3.0, so I was really keen on getting my hands on them after seeing all the improvements earlier this year at NAB. One of the first major changes with the larger unit behind me is a power bump from 300 to 420 watts, and it's now full color RGB WW. The softbox that it comes with is now 5 inches deep, which should help with softening the light a bit more since it has much more even spread across the diffusion. The older 2.0 mats used a pop-up diffusion that just slips on right over the frame, which is actually still available for the 3.0 mats if you prefer that faster setup. Just slip it on over each corner and you're ready to go. Probably the biggest improvement that I've noticed are the new buckles that fasten the mat to the frame, which are way faster to set up than those grommet ties that were used in the previous version. I would always end up losing the ties since they'd fling all over their case, and they always took forever threading each one through the individual grommets. Now you can just hook up the straps and then cinch everything down once it's snug. The newer frame also feels a lot sturdier with less play, and I didn't really notice as much flexing when I was rigging it overhead. It seems like the time saved with the new buckles is kind of offset by the time it takes to set up the new deeper softbox, which is why the prop-up diffusion is still a great option to have. The control box is also much improved with a much better display and quick access to plus or minus grain controls when you're in CCT mode. There's also a 5-pin DMX port as well as USB-C that can provide 2 watts of power for any of your DMX transmitters. One thing I noticed is that it seems like these units don't really have a studio mode, meaning that you can't hot strike them immediately upon receiving power, which would be nice if you're planning on leaving them set up in a grid or in a studio. Whenever you turn on the ballast, you have to manually select a color mode to engage the light and turn it on, which I thought was a bit odd. Another quirk that I had was with the selection dial. You have to turn it normally to make your selection, and my first instinct is to press the dial in to actually make the selection, but that doesn't do anything. You have to press the select button on the bottom row to actually make the selection, which always tripped me up whenever I use the light. I do believe Intellitek is aware of this, and I'm sure could be easily implemented via a firmware update. Also included is an egg crate to help you shape the light and mitigate any spill, which is usually pretty difficult when working with a light this large and soft. I've even stacked 2 light cloths side by side to effectively make a controlled 6x source right up against the wall, which would have been impossible with a traditional T-bone setup. The egg crate is pretty rigid and feels pretty similar to a DOP Choice snap grid, which is nice because there's minimal sag, but it can be pretty finicky when you're fitting it inside the softbox because the dimensions are so exact. The kit also comes with a Cardellini style clamp that mounts to the back of the frame with a 3-inch baby pin. That's way easier to use and it feels a lot more secure than the older version. The included mounting clamps were always a bit lousy, and the same holds true for the 3.0, so I'd recommend skipping that and just using the attached baby pin unless you plan on using this light with a regular light stand. So before I get into some of the other practical applications of this light, I want to talk about another one of my favorite pieces of kit, which also happens to be the sponsor of today's video, and that's CordBag. CordBag makes really high quality storage and organizational tools, and when I say these are some of my favorite pieces of kit, I'm not lying. These little pouches make it super easy to keep your gear organized and easy to find, and I literally bring at least one to every job, whether it's for media, batteries, hard drives, or any other camera accessories. So CordBag have a few new accessories releasing this month, which are super neat. One of which is this cord sling so that you can carry 2 cord pouches just right over your shoulder. I could see this being super handy for producers that want to help but don't quite know how. So you could just strap a couple of these together and have them carry around your media or batteries. Another kind of really neat one is this Y-wrap. These are great for wrapping up loose items like lenses and keeping them safe when you toss them in your bag. There are 3 different sizes. This is the medium. and it makes it really easy to wrap up. Each kind of step is numbered, so you know exactly which one you're on. You have the first side, second side, third side, and then you just kind of wrap the bottom with this mesh part. And these are perfect for those kind of one-off items, like if you're renting out a lens, or sometimes I'll put my Arri EVF in one of these, and it kind of keeps it nice and secure. The last new item is this PALS Molly adapter, so you can thread it through your belt, and then you can wear multiple pouches just right off the hip. I don't know about you, but I'm stuffing this thing full of Welch's. If you're interested in picking up some cord pouches for yourself, you can get each size individually, or buy a set of 4 for $150, which isn't bad at all. Use my code ISThatARed on checkout, and you can get 15% off your entire order. So get organized and check out Cord Bag. So another way I love using the mega-litecloth is by rigging it overhead. I mentioned these units in a few of my previous videos, but in one recent instance, I was helping a friend revamp his podcast lighting setup, and this was sort of our starting point. He originally had set up a bunch of ring lights all over the place, and I mentioned that it sort of just looks like daylight spilling into the room, and thought it might be worth adding in some contrast to reflect the darker tone of the show. Our Master 2 shot didn't really have a lot of headroom since the neon sign was mounted pretty high on the wall because of location constraints, which is why the light cloth was a great solution because our stands were basically right up against the ceiling. I set up a really simple goalpost and went for that toppy overhead look to kind of go along with that typical horror trope since the podcast centers around horror and true crime. It's dark, it's moody, and I thought the IntelliTech ended up being a great option despite being lit from the broad side. We weren't able to get that perfect far-side key, but not everything needs that perfect Rembrandt lighting, especially when you're dealing with location constraints.
But no, I think it looks stunning. I think it looks incredible. I'd love to see what it looks like in post.
Yeah.
What I'm used to is that it'll look great on the monitor, and then right when I get it on the computer, it's like noisy and everything's all f***ed up. But it was probably just because what I was doing before.
All right, so a few takeaways. 1, it's full RGB WW, 420 watts, that's brighter than a SkyPanel S60. 2, it's one of the easiest solutions for a soft light without extra modifiers. 3, the improved case makes it much easier to travel with. And 4, it's low profile and easy to use in a variety of environments. It's also great for taking Halloween photos of my dog. I've always preferred having the largest source possible, but for my money, I'd probably opt for the smaller 3x4 size since it's a bit more maneuverable and you don't end up losing that much softness. The reinforced smaller case is also a lot easier to travel with and gives me a lot more confidence if I have to chuck it under a plane or onto the truck. It's great having full RGB in such a complete package and comes in at a great price, especially when you compare it to other name brands like LightMatte. If you're interested and want to check these out, I've left an affiliate link down in the description. All right, don't forget to use the Force.